Melissa, and this is
Scott.
Scott. And from all the way from Gilroy, we have again Donna, and we have Kaylee here, and Brad, is it? Brady.
That's good.
Brady. Okay, Rob and.
Can you hear okay?
You hear me okay?
Yes. Okay, good.
Okay, great. Okay, hey, I'm so happy I could be with you. Such a privilege, really, isn't it, Ben, to do this kind of stuff? And I'm just so thankful that I get to be with you today, so let's pray together. Dear Jesus, we thank you very much for these dear missionaries, and pray you'll help them and bless them and protect them. Help me to be a good helper for them as they get ready to go and try and reach out to our people overseas. So we thank you for the time we get to have. Please help us. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, you noticed when I came in and, Ben was fiddling around and I got here late and Melissa got here late. And, I'm so glad this happened. I'm glad I'm not the only one. And I'm glad that you were a little bit behind too. Because here's why. One of the things about working as a missionary is that you'll always have problems with time. It's the biggest problem. How many of you have traveled for, across the country, or how many have traveled overseas? Okay, good. All right, so, I'm old enough to remember, Ben and I are old enough to remember when it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to travel overseas. No longer. But it usually goes like this. You're running through an airport because we have no time. We have to hurry. Come on, come on. And you get on the plane and like, call the doctor. I can't even breathe. I'm so stressed out, right? And then you land somewhere, and then they say, oh, you'll have to wait for 9 hours. Really? Okay, now we have too much time. Oh, man. Now, I want to ask you, how did this happen? How did we go from being constantly stressed because there's no time to being constantly bored because we don't know what to do with our time? How does this happen? Who created this? You know who? I did. It's all happening in here. It's all happening in here. You either got too much time or not enough. So please remember, that's nobody's fault. So let's take responsibility and say, it's my fault. Go ahead.
It's my fault.
We're in the season of Lent. The mea culpa is in place, right? I'm culpable here. If I'm stressed out because I don't have enough time, that's my fault. If I'm bored because there's too much time, I take full responsibility. Let me tell you why this is such a big deal. The Bible talks about two kinds of times. There is what we call, and these are Greek words, chronos time. You see the word what there? Chronological. And then there's the other Greek word, which we don't use sort of so much, kairos. So this is chronology. That's where we get that word. This word actually means opportune or opportunity. So you got two kind of times in your life. You got the chronological time, and you have the opportune time. But you get to decide. Remember what did Paul say in Ephesians? Make the most of every what? Opportunity. I think in the King James, redeem the time. Redeem the time. Buy it back. Make it work for you. I'm driving here, right? And I'm late. And I go, look at this, Lord. You worked it out perfectly for me to be late. And I had the little twinge of stress. Because like, oh man, I don't want to be late for the class. And I go, wait a minute. This is perfect. How many times, I'm ashamed to admit this, how many times have I done 3-day workshops about this very workshop that I'm doing here in 1 hour? I used to do them over 3 days. And so we were in Louisville one time, and I was so upset because we were so late. There was a conference in town, and I couldn't get a room in Louisville. I had to go to East Cupcake, Kentucky somewhere and get a room. And driving down the highway, and one of East Kentucky's finest, stopped me. And I said, hey, look, I'm a pastor, I'm supposed to do a thing. And she said, this would make a great headline in our local paper. I said, yeah, wouldn't it? Pastor gets stopped. I said, give me a shot here. She said, okay, just slow down. But there I was, I'm supposed to do a thing on time, right? And there I am, the worst guy of all. So nobody really knows how to do this. I don't care how often you study it. I've studied for 20 years now doing these workshops. Still can't get it straight. But what I can tell you is I'm very aware of the stressor when time comes. I was once training some Argentinian, they were Americans, and they were ready to go to Argentina. So we spent 3 days getting them ready, because they were going to go for a 2-week, check it out, and then come back, do some more orientation, and then go live there. So we did all the things. We do the thing, they go, they come back, now we're in reorientation, debrief. And I said, well, how did it go? And they both put their heads down. And the wife says, gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I said, what do you mean? I really messed up. So what did you do? And she said, why don't you tell them? He said, well, we were working in these villages, and Sunday morning comes, and there we are, and we're getting ready to have church. And we asked everybody, what time is church? They said, well, 10:30 is time for church. And there was 11:15, and the pastor wasn't there. And she said, and I said, don't tell me. You took it upon yourself to kind of get things going, and you kind of, she said, yeah, I said, okay, what did we learn? What did we talk about? She said, yeah, she said, I don't know what happened. I said, there you go. You see, the stress will grab you. If you don't think it's going to happen to you, think again. The very worst thing that happens to people on trips like this is you'll go to bed and say, hey, Ben, what you said, remember 10, we're supposed to do this. And then Ben's going to say, no, we're going to do that on Tuesday, not today. What do you mean? Well, now listen, if you say, but why? Okay, I'm going to get your names from Ben. And I will make a call, and I will not spare your feelings, because that's not what he needs. He needs you to say, hey, remember we talked about this. So let's make a private joke among us. When Ben comes to you every day and says, oh, we're gonna do this. We're not gonna eat now, we're gonna go over there. Mm-hmm. Repeat after me. No agenda. Ready?
No agenda.
If you go with no agenda, I swear, I'm not kidding, you'll have a blast. Mm-hmm. Not only that, the people will love you. You have got to just keep it in the forefront of your mind. If you have an agenda, it's going to go bad for you. I've had some very wonderful Christians, very mature, good people, turn into monsters. All for one reason. The agenda. When you go, there is no agenda. Let me hear from you. Why do you think I'm making such a thing about this? Why am I opening with this and I'm trying to drill it into your heads? This is huge. Why do you suppose I'm doing that?
Because these types of trips are bound to have all kinds of unexpected curves.
Contingencies. You never plan for them. That's right. Okay, a lot of curveballs. From the moment you leave Fort Wayne, it's going to happen. I guarantee it.
Time is a cross-cultural concept.
Yeah. By the way, anybody know this? I've been studying this for about 20 years because I'm trying to find somebody. There's a lot of great minds in the world who have studied time. Guess what they say it actually is? You know what they say? We don't know. I'm talking about the great minds of history. And here's what they always say. They say the same thing. We can experience it as we are now, and we can mark it as I am now. Apart from that, we don't even know what it is. Doesn't that prove that it must be God? It must be God who created this thing that we can't explain.
Well, the other thing is that God stands outside of it.
Exactly.
It's kind of a part of the fall when you think about it.
It has to be. I absolutely believe you're correct. It has to be part of the fall. Because think about it. What creates more stress for you other than time? Too little or too much? My retired friend calls me and says, oh, help me out. What? I got too much time. What? What do you mean you have too much time? Well, you know, I couldn't get it. So, but younger people come to me and say, you know, like at our school, 500 kids. Well, you're there. So I love, as they're walking in, I love to be by the door some days. And what you see, it looks like the night of the living dead. It looks like zombies walking in. And they're all like, and you talk to them and say, hey, did you remember the drive down here? And they just walk. They are so stressed out. And then they do all this all day long. Then they get home. They have a little something to eat. And then you know what they tell me? They're bored out of their heads. They're bored. We took a survey at our church. And not everybody answered it, so I don't know how good we did. But we tried to get as many younger folks, 18 to 34s. And what we found, they mostly said, we are so tired of running around. We don't know, does God have anything to tell us? Well, he has a lot to tell you about this, but we have to believe it. Mm-hmm. And I know that, you know, well, that's easy for you to say. You're, 62 years old, Larry, and you already have your PhD, and, you've done this 1,000 times, and, blah, blah, blah. I know it seems that way, and when I was sitting over there, it felt that way too. I get it. Spent a lot of years sitting on that side too. But I'm not lying to you. Worrying and all the craziness is not going to help you. You have to let it go. You have to, in the words of Lucy Van Cutt, you've got to trust your director. Right? Okay. So that means whatever Ben says goes. And by the way, this I really mean. I never take people unless they get this. I've had people come back and say, whoa, we thought you were a control freak, which I am kind of. But, because everybody is. But many people came back and said, oh no, he's not trying to control us. He's trying to protect us. You have no idea the danger that you could be in if you don't listen to the boss. You better listen. Do not question him. Mm-hmm. If he says, don't eat this, don't eat it. Don't eat it. Whatever he says goes. Listen to him. This is our beloved leader. Listen to him.
Benevolent dictator.
That sounds like the Transfiguration. All right. Here we are on the Mount of Transfiguration.
With a camcorder.
All right. Let me hear from you. What about this makes sense? And what about it doesn't really make sense? Gilroy in St. Louis, you can jump in too.
Flexibility is always the name of the game.
Say it one more time.
Flexibility.
Whoa, I like that. You're gonna make a good co-leader here. Flexibility. Flexible, that's another good private joke you ought to be using. Whatever happens, hey, we're flexible. And maybe inside you're stewing, but you better say flexible, no agenda here. The 9th fruit of the Spirit is the crowning achievement for the Christian. Remember? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and
Self-control.
right. And I realize a lot of you are younger, so a lot of you are thinking, gosh, the main thing I want to do is spread love and joy and peace. Okay, stop it. Just stop. Okay? How about spreading a little self-control? Try that. You already have plenty of love, joy, and peace. Okay, we have plenty. But if you're going to mature in the Lord, you better get to patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. And I have a young couple that comes, oh, but it's all about love, Larry. What? Yeah, but you want to be a baby? Is that what you want? I like to think that the reason you're going on this is because you want to grow up in the Lord. I mean, isn't that part of it? You want to test your faith. You want to see, how do I do on things like this? And by the way, don't be angry with yourself if you don't do well. Say, thank you, Jesus, I learned something about me. St. Augustine said, Lord, help me to know myself that I may know thee. So you really are going to know God better by finding out the places where you're impatient, where you're scared, where maybe you can't control yourself as well. That's okay. And by the way, there are times when Ben and I have had to put people in timeout. That means you might have a day where you say, can't I just stay where can I stay in my room today? That's okay. God loves you. We love you. It's all right. That could happen. It does happen. I don't want you to feel like you're a bad missionary. It happens. It's okay. Okay? You're not supposed to be anybody's hero. I think we have a pretty good Savior. He saved us. We're not asking you to do anything heroic here. Not at all. But we're asking you to get to know you. That's huge. All right, any other thoughts before I move now to the next section? Because I only get 15 minutes a section. By the way, I just got to, okay, we'll wait for the next section. All right, anything else with regard to time? All right, let me go to relationships, okay? And again, I call these 4 jolts. These are the 4 things that'll jolt you cross-cultural. I mean, they're absolutely boink, Now, I think there's 3 kinds of, I'm going to take this down. There's 3 kinds of missions maybe in the world. This is just my little version. There is this, let's see. I'm not a very good, let's see. See if you can tell what this is. There's this kind of missions. You know what that is?
A hammer.
That's a hammer. Okay, very good. It's like, gee, you have to be like over 60 to get my dumb drawing, because nobody else could get it. All right, so then here's a little chalkboard.
I'm not quite over 60.
I know.
I'll be over 60 December 31st.
I know exactly your age.
I'm
but
not as
actually,
old as you are.
I know you're not, but you're in your 61st year.
No, I'm in my 60th year.
Wait a second, hang on.
I just turned 59.
So, you're in your 60th year. Okay, you're right. I got that wrong. Okay, he's in his 60th year. Okay. Sorry. Okay,
I'm very,
take me to court.
I'm astute.
Take me to court. I was a year old.
I'm astute for 59. I figured out your hammer prematurely.
Well, I'm 62. All right. So here's a little chalkboard, right? So that's something like a teaching mission work, where you go and teach. And then there's my favorite, friendship evangelism. And that's what I think you guys do. I think you guys are more, and I'm not against the other. I'm not against swinging a hammer, we're going to build something, we're going to do whatever. But I do think that this kind of evangelism, because, for example, people from Bulgaria have come here to see their friend, right?
Yeah.
They didn't come for any other reason. They came because Ben's our friend. And then we've had them to our house, right?
Yeah, we had a great
We had
night.
a wonderful time.
Yeah.
So, but the thing of it is that is why, the reason you're going to Bulgaria is because that's where his friends are.
Right.
See, remember that.
Yeah.
It's not because he did something his friends are there. It's about friendship.
Yeah.
You can't boil it down any better than that. When I first started, 96, working overseas in Slovakia with Eastern European gypsies, so it was about my second trip, and by the way, I made about 30 of them since then. Can you imagine that? I can't even believe that. But about the second time I'd been there, I was like, what am I doing? It's like everybody asks me, okay, what are we doing over there? What do you do? I don't know. So one day I had a meeting, and I said, look, I need to know 2 questions. What can I do for us going forward? I mean, you've asked me to come. And what have I done so far that you think is helpful? Please tell me. So it was something like this kind of a meeting, and everybody looked around. They had a very perplexed look. I said, we don't. They couldn't. So I'm thinking, well, I guess I didn't do anything. And then one of them spoke up and said, you're Larry. The other one said, you're our friend. They couldn't get the question. Talk about no agenda. No agenda. The very best mission work happens when people who would hang out together anyway are doing the work. Remember that. Now again, I understand these things have back ends to them because it's a trip, but please get this. This is the number one thing, and you won't hear it from anybody else, by the way. You know, I've made so many hires in my life for missionaries and mission teams and so many things. And I've rarely lost a person over almost 30 years. Now think of that. Now again, I would love to say, yeah, look at me, I'm such a great understander of the skills and the blah. It's not that. I only do one dumb thing, because I can't think of a lot of stuff. Would I hang out with this person? If the answer is no, then you can't be on my team. Well, that's a terrible way to do it. Really? No, you should be looking at their skills and abilities, to which I say nonsense. And if we were sitting in a bar, I'd use a different word. But guys, listen to me. If you guys don't get along as a team, just together, and have some fun, liking to be together, nobody's, because here's what I realized. How many times have I sat in missionary houses overseas, and there we are at 2 o'clock in the morning, because that's when you have your best meetings, by the way, overseas. It's 2 a.m. Because you're busy all day, and you really want to visit, and you don't get to visit, because you're working all day. So it's always 2 o'clock in the morning, and we always laugh because we didn't do any mission work, and yet we saw some people come to Jesus Christ, which is what we wanted, but we never did really get to the mission work. And after so many years, even I could learn it. Wait a minute. They saw that we were having a good time. How many times we'd pull into a village, right? Just pull in, and there'd be 2 gypsies sitting under a tree. I'm not making this up. Just sitting under a tree, drunk. And we stop and say, "Excuse me, do you have a guitar?" "Yeah, I have a guitar." Do you have a microphone?" "Yeah, I have a microphone." "I'm going to be at the culture hall." You know what that is. It's sort of like the community center. So I'm going to be at the culture hall community center tonight. Can you bring the guitar? You play the guitar and you bring the microphone. Okay. Complete strangers. They get up, they sing whatever they sing. I don't know what they're singing about, but we get them involved. They're having a good time. Afterward, they're saying, "Hey, can we hear more about this Bible, about Jesus?" Well, most people, you're not supposed to use non-Christians to do mission work, are you? Shouldn't you check them out first? I didn't do a background check on them. Wow. Take me to court. Do you see how different it is? No agenda. They were there. Come on. Are you starting to get what this is really about? I always love to tell people, yes, I'm going to tell you about us. It's not that. You have to be you. You have to be you. Now, we'd be here all day if we just looked at the love passages in the Bible, right? So I'm not even going to open up the Bible on that one. But that's all it is. It's nothing else. So let's think about this. These people don't want anything from you. They want you. Well, they want you, St. Louis. They want you, Gilroy. They want you. They want your time. And they don't want you to say, "No, I don't have time for this because we're supposed to do it." No. We have no agenda. They want your friendship. For real. And you might think, "Well, gee, how am I going to make a friend over there?" You'd be amazed. When I first started going overseas, I never in my wildest dreams ever thought Slovak gypsies and Slovak nationals would come to Fort Wayne. How silly is that? They've done it a zillion times. I've had them live with me for a year or two because they were doing graduate work, some of them. Lived in my house. You just never know what God's going to do. That's the exciting part of it. And He'll do it because you gave your time and you gave your friendship. All right, let me hear from you guys. Any thoughts here? If you want to disagree, that's okay too. I mean, I'm not the last word on this. God is God. I'm just telling you how it was from my side.
I think it makes sense because, you know, in Scripture it says how they'll know we are Christians by our love. So, I mean, that's really how they know Christ, by knowing our love with one another and to them, our relationships.
There is something so powerfully inviting about a group of folks that get along. I mean, I remember when I first started going to church in San Francisco, wow, it's been 35 years now. And, you know, you might think, wow, that's a long time. But for me, it seems a short time because, you know, I was like 27 or something. And I had a lot of years I felt without the Lord. But I saw people getting along in ways I'd never seen. I saw people who were being patient with each other, even though I'd never seen anything like it. And they were being so kind and loving. They were very forgiving. I'd never seen it. But they were such examples for me. And I said, wow, when I get older in the Lord, I want to do that. I want to be like that. And that's what these people will see in you. They'll say, wow, you've known Jesus a long time. You get it. And they'll look to you as leaders. I know maybe you don't see yourself that way, but that's how some of them will see you. Any other thoughts?
Can I give a shameless plug here before I forget?
Give a shameless plug.
Larry wrote a book called No Word for Love that talks about his life and his experiences with the Roma people. And you can get it on Amazon.com. It's a fairly short book, but it's very, very insightful. And so we've got 3 weeks left before we go, and if you got on Amazon soon, you could get the book before we leave, and you'll read it very quickly because it's not very long.
It's
But-
on Kindle right now.
But
Sold out the first run, but it is on Kindle.
but the talk about
Sorry, I have a work
that's all right.
emergency.
Okay, the talk about love made me think of that book.
Yeah, gypsies don't have a word for it, by the way, and I've been all over the world trying to find out if any of the other gypsies, and it turns out we don't have one. We actually don't have a word for love.
And there is a Romani language.
Yes, there is a Romani language, and our Bulgarian friends, you know, I mean, we were able to communicate.
The first time
Yeah.
Dinko and his father and
A couple of other guys.
Angel and
Angel, yeah.
Sasha came, and Larry had lunch with them, and
Had a good
they
time.
sat down, and all of a sudden, and Larry had never met them, and Larry was talking to them in Romani, kind of broken Romani.
It was amazing. Now, we have, we're one of those languages, like let's say Kurdish language, they don't have all the words, gypsies don't have all the words, so we fill in with the host language, which means we fill in with English here in America. The travelers in England and Ireland, they fill in with English. But in Bulgaria, they fill in with Bulgarian. So just wherever you go, the French gypsies fill in with French. I mean, it just works that way. But we've got enough to where we can get there. And then after a while, you realize, okay, there's the Sibboleth and the Shibboleth to it. There's just little ways that they pronounce things that's different than us. But we get by. We do okay.
We're probably moving toward communication too, but I don't know if you caught this, but he just called the gypsies in the UK travelers.
Yes.
And in Germany, they're called the Sinti.
Sinti.
So
yes.
there's different names for Roma people in different
Right.
places.
I'll be doing some Sinti work in April, actually. I'm going to Germany in April at the request of Hans, whom Ben knows also. And you know what I love about mission work? It's such a family, isn't it? It really is. I mean, Ben, they always ask me about you every time I
Well,
speak with them.
Janet and I need to go with you sometime.
Yes. Well, I'll be in Germany because I got a phone call from Hans and Sandra, and they said, we want to start work in Romania. They're doing work with Sinti in Germany. And they want to start work. They want to start some new work in Slovakia, actually. They want to go back and restart it because a lot of the little kids from 96, guess what? They're big people now, and now they want to be missionaries too. So it's so wonderful. We have the next generation, It's really wonderful. Also, Romania has asked that Hans and I come there. So I'm pretty excited about what's going on. And so Linda, you'll be praying for us in April after Easter. We're going to. So anyway, I think you get that, you know, with the time there's no agenda, but you're really there to make friendships. And by the way, when you're hanging out with your friends, the last thing you want to be told is, you know, it's time to go, you know. I mean, I'm always amazed at people your age. You guys get, you know, I mean, when I was growing up, we didn't have, you know, gypsies don't use watches or anything like that. And gypsies are very bad about this, but they do like to hang out with their friends, and they really don't like for the party to end. And so a lot of times you'll be kind of tired and wanting to go to sleep, and they'll say, no, you have to stay up with us. Kind of gets like that sometimes. All right, I want to go to the next jolt, unless somebody has something about this. Please, Ruth Baker.
This may fit in or may not, but from my traveling, you've talked about how what they get from us, but what we get from them. It seems like every person that I meet teaches me a lesson.
Of course.
And the great contrast between their struggles and our own personal problems are like, you know, you go away thinking, I am so blessed, because it puts your life in perspective. So when we meet these people, I'm sure they appreciate the joy and the good news. But then I've always appreciated what they teach me.
Yes. In fact, you perfectly segued right to the next thing, because we're going to talk about communication. You know, I don't know who it was, maybe you know. Who was it who said, you are never not communicating? You're always communicating. The way you sit, the way you look at somebody, whatever you're doing, you're communicating something. I want to communicate to all of you that I like you. And I know some of the kids are saying, like, this is getting creepy. Some old guy likes us. No, I mean it though. I really do like you. I wouldn't have come if I didn't like you. If I didn't like you, I would leave. I mean it. I'm too old to mess around. If I don't like you, I'll just say, you know, I'll be nice about it, but I'll go. I like you. And you're already sort of heroes for me, because you're going to go reach out to my people. Thank you. But we have to communicate, don't we? And you have language barriers. Very important. You know, what's great, you're going to see Dinko. All right, so Dinko is the greatest translator in the world. Okay, he can go blah, 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 in Bulgarian and English and some other language, and all at the same time. And he'll be like eating and talking to you in English, and then these two guys are talking, no, it wasn't like that, it was like this. So anyway, you know, and that's Dinko. I mean, he has 4 conversations at once going. Okay, he's a wonderful guy, and he's insane. Okay, he is insane. He needs to be in a straitjacket. Okay? But me too. So I'm always in good company with my friend Dinko. But the thing about communicating is that you're going to have times when you're not going to know what to do. Now, here's what I want you to understand about this. There are people who come from this country who have acted very respectful in a disrespectful way to the nationals. And there are people who have acted disrespectfully in a very respectful way. And who do you think gets the forgiveness, the first group or the second? The second group. Because you will do disrespectful things. Don't worry about it. You'll do it. And I know you're afraid of that, but don't be, because you will do it. But here's the thing. As long as they know, and they'll know, everybody knows. Babies know. Did you know that, I mean, just try it sometime. I love to be you've been in our welcome center, right? Of our church. It's pretty big. I love to be like in a corner, and some mom will be with her baby. And I love to see how long will it take before I can get the baby to go like this to me. Now, it's really, and they always say, my baby's scared of everybody. It's so simple. They know. And how many little kids, and you know, they hang on my leg, you know, at the preschool. And why do they do that? And they go, wow, how does my kid? Because it's very simple. Your kid knows I love them. It's like, wow, my kids really love you. No. Your kids know that I love them. That's what kids always know, don't they? Babies know. You can always put your eye on a baby, and never forget this. Babies want to be the center of attention. As soon as I start preaching, man, there they go. Don't listen to him. Listen to me back here. Yeah, it's okay. But isn't that what human beings are? We want to be there. We want to communicate with each other. Talk about learning. I want to take Ruth's point. It's such a good one. It was early on, my good friend Viola. Have you ever met Viola? No. So anyway, Viola, my very good friend, we're traveling in the car for days, village to village. And I'm preaching a lot and teaching. And Viola says to me, "Oh, Pastor Larry, you have a good gift for preaching Bible so people can understand." I said, "Wow, thank you. I'm so glad." I said, I wish that I could take maybe just a little bit of that gift and move it toward parenting, because I always feel like I'm such a lousy parent. At that time, my son was about 17. And I said, when it comes to parenting, I don't feel like I have any gifts. And she goes, "Oh, you were not raised in a Christian home, that's why." And I said, "What did you say?" And she said, "But you were not raised with Christians. Yeah? You don't know. You are making it up." I said, "You will suffer." That's how she said it. And I said, "Viola, you have just put 17 years in perspective that I never would have thought of." And ever since then, I stopped being upset with myself that I couldn't be a better parent. Because we weren't Christians. My father was kind of gone a lot, drinking with the boys and stuff. My mother was a fortune teller. And so, what do we know about all this? Linda and I just made it up, Now, thank God Adam's a believer. He's 35 years old, and he's a basketball coach at Snyder, and I think they're 11-5, so that's good. They're doing well. But, if you don't know how to do it, how do you know how to do it? You have to make it up, don't you? How many here were raised in Christian homes? Okay, just about all of them. And I wasn't. And my son Adam, he knows nothing about anything other than Jesus. That's all he knows. So from his experience, it's like, "Pop, you don't have to make such a big deal out of it. We're Christians." "Yeah, but it is a big deal, son. Like, really big." He said, I know. But, for him it's not a big deal because he didn't live through it. Like, we didn't get thrown out of his family for believing in Jesus. Like we did. But these things have to be communicated. And so I'm going to tell you this. If you really, really, really want to visit with somebody, if you really do, make your appointment with Dinko or the translator and say, "Please do me a favor. Could I have 20 minutes of your time? Because I want to get to know this person. They seem so nice, but I don't know how to talk to them." And they'll be very, very good about this. And they'll say, "Oh, sure, just tell me the time and I'll make the time." So you're not out of line by doing this, because there will be vibe, and I'm a musician, so I'm into the vibe. If you grew up in San Francisco in the 70s and all that, wow. We always say, man, if you remember San Francisco in the 70s, you weren't there. And I really don't. My brother can tell you stories.
Is that right, Donna?
I completely agree.
You're probably too young, but yeah, my brother can tell stories about me, stuff I did in the 70s, and I literally do not remember doing this stuff. These were the days for that. So, but I will tell you this, that communicating with people over there can be done. It can be done. Sometimes it's done without words. And if it's done without words, then you should go to a translator and say, "Please help me. I want to visit with this person." They have ways of showing you that they like you. It's amazing, isn't it? No words, and yet, wow. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, and something comes to mind. There was this woman in one of the villages we were in. It was at the bridge too. It was a little chilly in the evening, and it's like you said, there were no words exchanged. It was with Emily, I remember, and Emily was visibly cold at the time, and the woman gave Emily her coat,
Oh.
And it was just a little jacket, and she gave it to her, and she wanted her to keep it for like the week that we were there. I don't remember how long. But it was just this really precious exchange that there was nothing, and then she got someone over to talk to her and to communicate. But it was a real, that's what came to mind, just that there was this precious exchange between them, that they, you know, she saw that there was a need there, and she provided for her, and yeah.
It's crazy. I was supposed to be the youth speaker at a 3-day rally up in the
Yeah.
mountains. Slovakia has their own version of the Alps. It's called the High Tatra. Oh, it's so pretty. So we're up there. Larry's the speaker for 3 days. Wow, great. People from all over Eastern Europe are there. And I commenced to get sick. And I ate something that I shouldn't have eaten. Some gypsy gave me something. Who knows what. But I'm sick, and I'm in bed, and I'm near the restroom for 3 days. And all I remember is going to the restroom and then passing out. Going to the restroom, passing out.
Wow.
For 3 days, there's a man sitting on a chair. I don't care what time it was, he never left the chair. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and he would say, okay? I said, yeah, I'm okay. Then I'd wake up hours later, he was still there. We became very good friends. We never said any words to each other. Man watched over me. As soon as the rally was over, guess what? I felt fine. The German missionaries were there, and they said, oh, you are somehow looking like the wall. What is the matter with you? You are white. And I said, oh, I don't feel good. And they gave me something. I don't know what it was, but I felt better. But this communication thing, I tell you, it's a mystery how it happens. When you're doing something there, make sure you look right at them. Look at them. Don't look away. Look at them. Because that, to me, is one of the best ways you can communicate with people. Look at them. I mean, it's as old as the hills and twice as dusty when you talk about eyes, you know. I mean, you really find out everything you want to know from people. Just look them square in the eye. We were visiting a church recently, and my wife and I came out. My wife is so funny because she notices the dumbest things. She'll say, after the church service was over, we were visiting, she said, look at that pastor. And I said, okay, what am I looking at? She said, look, he's greeting the people, but he doesn't look at them. Ever happened to you? You're coming through church and the guy shakes your hand, but he doesn't look at you. And me, you know, I like to, well, I was almost like laser burn you, you know, because I want you to know that we're having a moment here. Nobody else is allowed. Nobody. There could be 1,000 people in the room, but you and I, we're having a moment here. And I'm not looking at the other 1,000. I don't care about the other 1,000 in this moment. I will when this moment is over, but not now. The eternal now, see? So see what's happening is these people are saying, we don't care what you do. We want your time. We want your friendship. We want to communicate with you in a way that's meaningful, which could mean no words even, right? Don't be afraid that you're not going to do the right thing. Be you. They want you. They don't want what you can do. I've often said this to my missionaries because, I mean, let's face it, many missionaries have come to my house or my office and they just sit down and go. And you know what's happening. They feel like losers. The thing they wanted to do didn't happen. The thing that they wanted to the project was a failure. Everything doesn't go. So now what? Well, that's when missionaries have to know this, that God loves you more than your service. God loves you more than anything you can do for him. He doesn't need you to do anything. Pretty sure he has things. And young people, I tell you, I'm troubled. I am. Young people really are under this thing, and I don't know where you got it, but please get rid of it. That, oh, you know, I got to do it like this for God, and I heard somebody say, what's this expression? I've got to be right in the center of his will, or something. Like, no, you don't. Where's that in the Bible? That's just like adding Pharisaical nonsense to the Bible. You don't have to do exactly what he wants. Go do something, anything, but make sure you're having a good time and that you're not hurting anybody. Try something. There's no magical inside his will thing. I don't know. Whoever started that, I'd like to punch him in the nose, because I think he hurt too many young people by saying, and maybe he didn't mean to hurt you when he said it, whoever he was, but it's hurtful. Go out and mess up. You're young.
Right.
That's what you're supposed to do. Okay? And that leads me to the very next section, which I always say for last, because vulnerability is the absolute key. It's the absolute key to all of this. Now, I don't have handouts, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read some things to you, and it's two different kind of groups. There are groups in the world that conceal their vulnerability, and there are people in the world who expose their vulnerability. And so we're going to play a little game. Now, let me get my definition of vulnerable. You are vulnerable when you are susceptible to wounding. You are vulnerable when you are susceptible to wounding. Anybody here like to be wounded? Let me see your hands. Okay, nobody likes it. Which means everybody feels vulnerable most of the time. It just is. Okay? Why do you think the Bible says fear not so many times? Because we're afraid of being wounded all the time. And by the way, even at your young age, you have many wounds already. You have enough to, fill up the whole universe at just your age. So it's not like, gee, Larry, it's not like we don't have plenty going on in the area of wounds. We know what they are. Okay, yes. But still, there are people in the world who somehow conceal more than others, and some who are willing to expose. So let me try a little game, all right? And try to just remember here, because I don't have the handout. First, let me ask you the question. When I was 13 years old, I usually felt kind of, yell it out, 13 years old. I usually felt kind of embarrassed. What else?
Awkward.
Awkward. What else?
Insecure.
Insecure. What else?
Left out.
Left out. What else? What about St. Louis?
We said disgusting.
Say it again.
We said but then disgusting.
They said insecure, but then
Insecure. How about Gilroy?
I can't remember that far back.
All right. Probably it was so traumatic you're trying to not think about it. Yeah. Yeah. When I was 13 years old, I was the same height as I am now.
Oh, goodness.
Same height. So you can well imagine. A lot of jokes, right? A lot of getting beat up after school by the kids who wanted to see who could beat up the tallest guy, Now, I was a fast runner, so that was good. I was usually the fastest guy in school. But if they had 2 or 3 guys, it was kind of hard, But everybody has 13-year-old problems, and I picked 13. And by the way, I've asked the question in Slovakia, I've asked it in Germany, I've asked it in Latvia, I've asked it everywhere. It always is bad. Every time. Why is that? Well, it's a crazy age, right? I felt very gangly. I would bump into things at 13. I would fall down for no reason. I couldn't control the way my feet were going, You probably had problems like that too. But you were very vulnerable, and you felt it. Now, let me just tell you something. That 13-year-old is alive and well and living inside you. Never forget it. Ever. You have never forgotten, even though I know Gilroy says, I can't think back. Part of you still remembers those very traumatic nonsense experiences at 13. Even though you don't consciously remember them, they're in there, and they sort of get in the way of your life. And sometimes you'll say, oh man, I wish I would have said hello. Like, for example, Colleen White. Colleen White was like the prettiest girl in the 7th grade, and I should have said hello, but I never said hello to her. And now this is 50 years later, almost, and I still kick myself that I didn't say hello to Colleen White. One of the kids recently said, "Why don't you look her up on Facebook?" I said, "No, I really don't need to do that, okay?" But Colleen White was so nice, and I never said hello. Why did I not say hello? Rob, why did I not say hello to her? You know the answer.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly. I was afraid that maybe she wouldn't say hello back. I come to find out she liked me too. How dumb is this? But see, that's what I mean. You never get over the 13-year-old stuff. Some of us are willing to expose vulnerability, and some of us aren't. So let me read I'm going to read, and so just try and keep track. People who conceal say protection of self-image at all costs, avoidance of error and failure, emphasis on quality of performance, reluctance to go beyond limits, denial of culpability. It wasn't my fault. Refusal to entertain alternative views, vagueness about personal life. Okay? So those are people who have a concealment. So now here are the people who are sort of the opposite. Very unconcerned about error or failure, emphasis on completion of the event, willingness to push beyond the limits, ready admission of culpability. So what? It was my fault. Take me to court, you know. Openness to alternative views, willingness to talk freely about their personal life. Now, obviously, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, gee, Larry, I'm probably not one or the other. How many, by a show of hands, would say, well, I think I'm a little bit of both? Let me see your hands. Okay, that's what you're supposed to be. So, let's play a little game. So here's 0, here's 100. We're going to play a game. What's your vulnerability scale? So what I want you to do, so if you really, really had a hard time getting here today because you had to like do the self-talk and get out of, you were like inside your closet and said, wow, okay, here I go. You're like a 0, okay, on the vulnerability scale. If, on the other hand, you go to nude beaches, you're 100.
That's
By the way, I had a lady, I'm not making this up, I think she was about 75 years old at one of my workshops. I can't remember where. I've done so many of these, but she said, oh yes, I've been to nude beaches. I used to go to nude beaches. Like everybody's like, really? This little Christian lady, you know. Anyway, and she said, we're not nudists, we're naturists. Well, excuse me. Well, anyway, all right, let's play. Ready? Rob, what number do you give yourself? Number 0 is living in a closet. 100 is nude beaches. Yell it out, don't think.
62.
Okay, here we got 62 for Rob. How about Gilroy? What number?
Closer to the 90s. I actually have done.
You've been to the nude beach. Okay, Gilroy.
Now that's something I never knew about you.
How about St. Louis?
I'll go 55.
55, okay. For St. Louis.
Both of them?
How about Brady? Brady?
40.
40. See, whenever they take a long time, it's always lower beyond, yeah, see? Now that definitely shows up. Okay, let me ask you this. Who is under 25 today? Under 25. All right. Let me get this. 25. All right.
Years old?
No, he meant,
I mean on the number. I'm sorry.
Still applies, right?
I meant on the scale, but I know you're under 25, but on the scale. Who's under 25 on the scale? Who's under 50 on the scale? Just raise your hands real quick. 1, 2, okay. 50. Okay. There's 3 of you there. How many are over 60? Okay. How many over 80?
I'm right at 80, I think.
Okay, 80 for this one.
And I know because my wife tells me.
Okay, good.
She says you
80?
share too much.
Yeah, right. Yeah. My wife always says that too. Yeah. All right. Now, the thing of it is some of you are so young that'll be hard for you. Because, by the way, I guess, I don't know if you knew this, but the literature is pretty clear that your brain is probably not done till you are 25. Okay, till you're 25. It's still kind of figuring out. Your personality actually is not formed until you're about 25, which is, by the way, why you have the 26 Club. You know what the 26 Club is, don't you? James Dean, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin.
Oh.
What did they do?
They all tied it?
Well, it's you're right, it's the 27 Club. It's the 27 Club. But something happens at 26. I got saved at 26. Many people that you'll meet got saved at 26. And you know why? It's either that or die. And I think many of these people, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, James Dean, there's a bigger list, Kurt Cobain, it's either, look, get straight with where you're headed or you're going to die. And that's what happens. Now, many of you are not there yet, but please be careful at that age, because when you're 26, you better be careful. But this is funny thing about this. Now, no way in the world can you say that the 90s are better people than the 25s. Okay, they're not. But usually you have to live a while to get here. Isn't that right? Younger people will say, well, I'm not sure. And so if you say you're not sure, you have to be on this side because you're not sure exactly how to expose your vulnerability. When I was your age, I probably would have been more over here, But now that I'm older, I'm like way over here somewhere. Because you're older, you don't care. It's not you don't care, it's just it doesn't bother you when people say, you're stupid. Okay, whatever. Tell me something I don't know. But this vulnerability thing is so big. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Just yell it out loud. The last time I had to ask somebody for help, I felt. Yell it out. I really needed help and I had to ask somebody. I felt.
Stupid.
Stupid. What else? What?
Useless.
Useless. What else?
I felt fine.
Okay, but,
I
yeah,
felt
but
relieved.
older people don't count on this one.
Oh, okay.
Human.
I retract the answer then.
What was that?
Felt human.
Human. What else?
Sound like a burden.
A burden. All right. Mostly, no matter where, and by the way, I've done these workshops everywhere. It transcends culture, Ben. Always bad on this question. Now, let me ask you another question. I'm going to show you the dumbness of us human beings. Watch this. The last time somebody asked me for help and I was able to help them, I felt.
Great.
Great. What else?
Needed.
Needed. What else?
Important.
Important. What else?
Skilled.
Brilliant. What else?
Skilled.
Skilled. All right. Now, let me see if I got this straight. In the gypsy economy, if I have to give you something, I should be unhappy. And if I get something, I should be happy. But you people are telling me that if you have to get something, if you have to ask, you feel bad. But then if you get something, you feel the other way around. It makes I can't even get it in my head. What is going on here? Why do you feel bad when you're going to get something and you feel good when you give something away? I'll give you a hint. Acts chapter 20 will tell you. It's one of the few places where you see red letters in the book of Acts. It's a red letter, I think it's 2017. There's Paul. He's making a speech to the Ephesian elders, and they're saying, don't go. And he says, I have to go. But if you go to Jerusalem, you'll die. And he says, I know, it's possible, but I have to leave. And they're crying on the beach. It's a very poignant scene. And he says, look, you know that I always made my own living. You know I love you guys, and I never coveted anybody's money. In fact, I believed what the Lord told me. It is more blessed to
Give.
than to
Receive.
So you just proved it, didn't you? Now let that burn into your head for a second. It is more blessed to than to receive. Everybody knows this one. Now, let's try this. I'm going to ask you a question, but I want you to take your time and answer it. If you wanted to really bless somebody, I mean really bless them good, what would you do for them? If you really wanted to bless them, what would you do for them? If you think you got it,
Give them an opportunity to give or to share their skills or their knowledge or whatever.
yikes. Wasn't your first thought, was it? It never is. Because we're still so self-centered, we think it's about us and what we like. It's not about what we like, it's about what's best for the person. Somebody said, it's not about what I want, it's about what they need. And I know you're going to feel stupid if you ask them for help. But how are they going to feel? How are they going to feel, Allie? And by the way, can I just mention that based on what we know about the actual figures, I mean, this is science, compared to them, you're multimillionaires, am I right? And so if you walk in, boy, one of the worst things a guy ever did, he begged me to go. I shouldn't have let him go. He was a pastor from up north, and he begged me, please take me. And I said, Terry, I don't think you're ready. Oh, come on. Oh. So we took him, and we're in there like this horrible, horrible settlement. That's where gypsies live, in settlements. They just don't live in the city. They have their own little tent city, I guess you'd call it. You know, tents and cardboard houses or whatever they got. And we're walking around, and people are sick, and people are drunk, and it was like one of the worst experiences of my whole life to see that my own people live like animals, you know. And we went in there, and Terry pulls money out of his pocket, and he starts giving it to all these people. And I had to put him in timeout. I said, Terry, you know, you have to stay in the hotel today. You can't come out. He said, yeah. He said, I didn't. He said, yeah, but they were so sick. And I said, I know. But you take away the people's dignity when you do stuff like that. Guess how much money I've given to people over the years? These are the poorest people in the world, by the way. Take a guess. How much money? You're right. 0. Now, have I helped with projects? Sure. Have I ever given anybody any money? Never, and I never will. One of my first trips, I went and somebody hit me up for money. And I said, so, I'm bringing you the good news of Jesus and you want money, is that it? And 2 other guys beat him up. They beat him up. And they said, how dare you? And so it went all over Slovakia. Do not ask this man for money. Do not ask this man for money. And by the way, you be careful of this too. And I know it's going to feel good to give the money. But it's not about us feeling good. It's about doing what God likes. Sometimes God likes for you to do the thing that's going to make you feel the worst, which is accepting help from them. We started church. You're familiar with the Harvester neighborhood, I'm sure. Oh, I'm over. Sorry.
That's all right.
One last story. The Harvester neighborhood, worst neighborhood in the state. One of the worst in the state. So that's where we planted our church in '96. And the reason I wanted to go there is because I knew it was one of the worst in the state. And of course, church planters are supposed to go to Pine Valley and all the nice neighborhoods, but I didn't want to go there. So I come to find out that's where all the sex offenders have to go, and all the really poor people have to go. And so I said, yeah, this is where we're going to go. And we would go from door to door, back in those days, and knock on the door. And we would ask people, hey, could you help us? We got this little church over here, but we need somebody to cut the grass for it. We don't have anybody. Oh, I can do that for you. Hey, the church needs some painting, but I don't know how to. Oh, yeah, we'll come and do it. Strangers. What was at work here? What was at work? They felt good about helping some pastor. They didn't even know me. But you know all those people I asked for help? They're all Christians in that church now, 20 years later. They're the big shots in that church. And all we did was ask for help. We didn't say, oh yes, we're going to do this for you, and we have all these wonderful things that we can do for you. Never. We went around asking for help. And if you will do this, I can tell you a guy went to Haiti, came back and said, wow, in Haiti, I mean, they have nothing. And I would ask for help on a couple things and they would smile. Watch the smiles. When a multimillionaire asks you for a favor, you feel pretty good about yourself, don't you? And you're a multimillionaire. Remember that. Don't ever, ever see yourself as anything but like this. You're up here. You have police power, social power, economic power. They have none of that. If they call a cop, he's going to beat them up. You can call a cop and they go, whoa, you must know all the policemen in town. Probably you pay them off. That's why he came and said, how can I help you? Believe me, it's not like that in Bulgaria. Final thoughts and then I'll pray. What did we get? Was I just flapping my gums for an hour and nothing happened? If there's no takeaway here, please, I'm going to go and shoot myself in the head. Please, there must be takeaway.
It's just your discussion about mentioning Haiti and that jumped out to me because I've been to Haiti multiple times, and sometimes it's involved, not always, but sometimes work projects, and the ones we enjoyed the most were we were working with the Haitians, and sometimes ask them, oh, how do you want us to build this, or that sort of thing. Or what should I do? How should I dig this trench?
I need your advice.
Yeah.
Ask for advice. It's their town. They know how to operate. What are the takeaways today? First here, right there. I'm going to ask each of you, but I'll get to you to Ruth. I'm going to ask each of you for a takeaway.
Okay. I really liked how you talked about how we need to be vulnerable.
Is it Casey?
Casey.
Casey, yeah.
And just the fact that it comes with age, and that with each new experience we grow.
Right, yeah. Don't be too hard on yourself because you're not feeling like you want to be susceptible to wounding. You're so young, and it's difficult. But be patient with yourself, okay? Chris? No,
Yeah.
Chris. Yeah.
No agenda. I loved that.
Good. You seem like a no agenda kind of dude to me.
I really like.
Good. I like no agenda. Okay. I think you guys need to follow Chris on this.
He and Allie are newlyweds.
Hey, way to go.
We've been married for 8 years.
That's newlyweds, man. That's newlyweds. Anything under 5 is newlywed. How long are you married now?
It'll be 19 years.
19. Wow, that's
In a row?
In a row, yeah.
In a row.
All at once.
Okay, Allie.
I like what you said about communication, because I felt like if you wouldn't have said anything, I would have felt pressure to try to talk to people.
Whatever you do, do not
Don't
get a
try
canned.
it.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't try to get a canned speech going. Please, please promise me you won't do this. Promise me. Thank you. Derek.
Yes, very good. Just that you said you wouldn't go on a mission trip unless you would hang out with that person already.
Yeah, really. I mean, you guys have to find things about. I mean, you can always find things about each other that you really, really dig. You know. Don't tell.
Starts with an L.
It starts with an L. It's not. It's not Laura. Laura.
Leah.
Leah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
You talked about relationships with the people and just like looking at them, and like I feel like looking at them, it says so much more than just being around them. Like you look at them and they're like, oh, I know you're focused on me, and that's what you care about.
Yeah, and you do that anyway. Okay, you naturally do this, and so I hope you'll just be your natural self, and don't be afraid. Don't make it out like, gosh, I don't want them to think I'm staring at them. It's okay to stare at them. It's okay because you don't have the language. It is okay to do that. How about Brady and
Kaylee.
Kaylee? What takeaways have you got?
It's more about the friendships than what we can do.
Ah, excellent. How about you, Brady?
That would be, I don't have to which, but you still get along and become friends.
Okay, good. Yeah, the friendship thing. How about Rob?
I think you emphasized really well about how God's work is more redemptive than it is. It's not just doing projects. It's supposed to be leading them to Christ. So sometimes it's more about the redemptiveness than it is.
That's great. Yes, we are buying back everything. Everything can be bought back. Your life up to this moment can be bought back if you want it to be. None of that nonsense. And when you live a long time like me, that means something. Because there's a lot of bad stuff back there. And I got to get up in the morning and say, okay, those 62 years of bad things, not going to ruin me today. It's not going to happen. The devil would like for it to happen, but it's not going to. By the way, how do you say your name again?
Scott.
Scott.
Yes. 2 T's at the end.
2 T's at the end.
Yes. I like that, your description of how you started your church. And that idea, I've read When Helping Hurts and
Yes.
and that idea of, whether it's a church or, urban renewal.
matter what it is.
Going into the neighborhood instead of going in and doing a bunch of stuff, go in there and ask for help.
Ask for help, absolutely. Thank you, that's such a good one.
You skipped me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ben. Okay, Ben, what have you learned today?
I like listening to my friend.
Ben and I don't see each other often, but it's so funny. Whenever we do see each other, it's almost like the conversation picked up from 4 years earlier. And when you have friends like this, I think you don't let go. Don't let go if you get a friend like that, where you can remember exactly what we talked about 4 years ago and pick it up like that. That's a friend. Please.
The concept that the ministry happens even when we think it's not happening, like how you were talking about how we didn't do any ministry today, but yet it felt, that people were ministered to.
Absolutely. And by the way, just remember this, the universe has no other purpose. So you couldn't mess this up. The universe only has one purpose, for people to get saved. Once everybody who's going to have a chance to hears, the universe as we know it is over. So remember, when you do this kind of work, you're plugged into the purpose of the universe. I mean, Star Trek has nothing over us. Nothing. Ruth.
First point, I really appreciate the insight of the 26-27 club. I hadn't put those facts together.
Something
thank
happened
you.
to you at 26 or 27
So-
probably.
I'll process that tonight. This is my first mission.
Why?
I'm finally stepping up.
Good for
Finally.
you. Good for you.
And I thought we were going to go on a hammer mission of sorts, because we were supposed to pack old clothes.
Yeah, sure, there'll be a little
But my
bit.
takeaway is just be me.
Good. Yeah, and don't get too much, and on that day, I guarantee you, that work project with the painting, you'll probably end up with more paint on yourself, and it's probably not going to be really what you think. And afterwards you'll say, but gee, we didn't even paint anything or something. Something weird. Some guys went to Thailand years ago after the tsunami, remember? And I trained them and I said, why are you going? They said, well, we got to build some boats. They need some boats. I said, well, you're not building boats. You're getting to know those poor people. And they said, oh no, we got to build boats. They came back and they said, guess how many boats we built? How many? None. We sat around with those people. They were hurting so bad, So keep that in mind. Wow, I went way over. And Gilroy, what do you got? Final word.
My takeaway is that, and my experience is that everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to happen. And that we need to leave our egos at home.
Yeah, egos, check them in at your house and pick them up when you get home. Good idea. Let me pray. Dear Jesus, we thank you. You show us